All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Never Ending Conversation. It's been a few years. I'm back with my friend Watson, and we are in Thailand again.
We are.
So, welcome back, Watson.
Thank you.
Let's, I guess, just jump into it. We don't need to do too much of an introduction here. And yeah, let's just get into talking a little bit about the world and philosophy.
Okay, thank you for having me back on. It's quite an opportunity for us to be here again together. I've been in Thailand for about a year now, and I've had a lot of time to think and put my thoughts together, and I've been working on an idea recently. I call it MAD, which is an acronym, stands for the Master Argument for Deity, and I took the name from George Berkeley's Master Argument, who is a famous Renaissance philosopher. UC Berkeley is actually named after him, and he was an idealist, and idealism, as opposed to materialism, which proposes that everything is ultimately physical. In other words, like physicality is the groundwork of reality, whereas idealism posits that mind is the prime currency of reality. And so the argument that I want to talk about today is called MAD, and it from the top-down view, like the top level view is that there are three possibilities in terms of existence. Either the universe is eternal, the universe created itself, or a being that is eternal created the universe. And the reason that that being would have to be eternal, the being that created the universe, is because if it wasn't, then you would get an infinite regress where the thing that created the universe, something would have had to created it. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems crystal clear that when you're just looking at existence, either the universe is eternal, it created itself, or it was created by an uncreated thing.
No, exactly.
Is that good? Okay. I call that the necessity of eternity, which is a bit of a, like, I don't want to say a misleading term, but it's not like the best name for it, because obviously if the universe created itself, then that's not eternal. But if we can eliminate the possibility of the universe manifesting from nothing, that's called ex nihilo, to use a philosophical term. That's a Latin, which means creation from nothing. And if that possibility can be eliminated, then we're either dealing with an eternal universe or a being that's eternal that created the universe. So in either case, you would have eternity to work with. And so the first of those three legs is to try and tackle the possibility that the universe created itself naturally, basically to disprove the Big Bang logically. And there are basically there's three ways that I have to disprove it. And the first two of them are logical arguments, and the third one is, I guess it's also a logical argument, but it's more based in physics, because everything that happens, I mean physically, every action, every force has what's called force carriers. There's a theoretical particle called a graviton that actually transmits the force of gravity. Every interaction, be it electromagnetism, strong force, weak force, they have what are called force carriers. And so in order for an object to move, there are other particles that transmit the force, sort of like they come up to it, grab it, and like pull it along.
Yeah, it's like a way to transmit that force's energy to another body.
Force carriers. And force carriers, the way I'm thinking about it, it's sort of like a logical conundrum, because think about it, if nothing exists and you want to begin creation and you want to begin moving things around. If you have to create everything from nothing, then it's like you don't have the force carriers that you need to move stuff around to begin with. So it's like the force carriers had to already exist, or there was something that like already existed that moved the force carriers. Like where?
Yeah.
So,
How
so
did
there's
these
that.
force carriers become into existence if there's nothing to permit their
Permit them to move? Yeah, like if they're the things that move everything else around, like, but yet things, it's just like a weird thing to think about. So there's that, and then also on the physics side of it is that they talk about laws being constant, and if the laws in the universe are constant, then that seems to support an eternal multiverse. And most physicists today are on board with some sort of multiverse, and they call it like eternal inflation, different sorts of eternal inflation models where because the conventional Big Bang Theory has the idea that the universe had a very brief moment of rapid inflation. Like it's still expanding, but it's eternally inflating, and you have
where it went from nothing to infinitely inflated, basically.
Yeah, almost like the Mandelbrot set where there's like infinitely many little bulbs coming off of it.
Yeah, you zoom in
And
more,
you
and
just
it's just a repeat of the same,
each one.
basically the same pattern, but
slight
very cool
variations.
Yeah, that set always reminds me of like a Buddha sitting there, the way it looks, the head and the shoulders and then the legs. But anyways, continue.
And so most physicists, I think, are willing to entertain the possibility that the universe is not eternal. And then I have two philosophical arguments to attack the universe being spontaneously manifested from nothing. They are AARE and the necessity of existence. So AARE stands for the argument against random existence, and it's a probability-based argument. So any probability is not just one event. Like if you talk about the roll of a die, it's actually two events. It's the roll and then the random outcome of that roll. And if the roll was the same as the outcome, then it wouldn't be random. It would just be like one event. It would be like you'd put your hand out with 5 facing up on a die, say, and then you just put your hand down on the table and say, oh, I just landed on 5, no randomness. And so if the random coming into being of the universe spontaneously from nothing was the first event, it can't be random because it could only ever at most be the second event. It would have to be the random outcome of a roll. Also, whenever I've modeled the random manifestation of the universe, we talk about the coin toss analogy. And so you imagine a football game, and at this football game, we're going to decide, instead of Green Bay or Broncos to get the ball first, this is heads, the universe comes into being, tails, the universe does not come into being. But that flipping event constitutes a something where we wanted it to be the case that nothing existed before the universe, because the universe is everything that is going to come into existence. And so,
Yeah, isn't there like a principle in quantum mechanics, right, where the particles, they got the antimatter and the matter particle, right, and they're supposed to balance each other out, and they'll eliminate each other when they interact. But there's also like a random happening that the antimatter and the matter, when they interact with each other, it actually doesn't eliminate them, it just produces the matter, and that's how we end up seeing an accumulation of particles and atoms within
produces
the universe.
Pure energy. And that's a big question there. Where is all the antimatter?
Right. It's already been eliminated, and somehow more matter was left over, even though there was supposed to be a balance.
Either we're not thinking about it right, or it's got to be really, really, really far away, like across a boundary perhaps. But I hope that sort of makes sense. Again, argument against random existence is saying that the universe can't, coming into being randomly, it can't be the first event because random events are actually nesting two events, the role and the outcome, and they have to be distinct, otherwise it's not a random event. So, universe, it couldn't be the first event.
All right.
So it shuts down on it there. And then the other argument is that I said the argument, what did I say? Necessity of existence. Necessity of existence. This is a rather new argument for me, and it's the idea that nothingness is equivalent to non-existence. And if you just say non-existence exists, it doesn't make sense. And so non-existence doesn't exist. And furthermore, if it's impossible for non-existence to exist, then something must exist. And this is this is even more fundamental than looking at probability. This is the first philosophy, as Rene Descartes talked about, getting to what can you actually know? What's the first thing that you can figure out logically about the world? And I think this is
know for certain.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, and so if it's impossible for non-existence to exist, then something logically has to exist. Then the Big Bang, then the universe cannot have come into being from nothing because something logically has to exist. And if something logically has to exist, then that didn't become true. That was always true. And so if that was always logically true at the meta level, then something has always existed. Again, if something has always existed because it's impossible for nothingness to exist, then the universe can't come from that which logically cannot exist. Mm-hmm. So that something has to exist. And then the next question becomes, is the universe that which necessarily exists, or is it something else? Is it that which created the universe? And so if we can allow, just for the sake of argument, that we have sufficiently, let's say we haven't 100% disproven the Big Bang, but we've called doubt upon it in 3 different ways, 3 different arguments, and that only leaves the other 2 possibilities, that a thing that is uncreated created the universe, or the universe is eternal. And going right back to the necessity of existence, if the universe is the necessarily existent thing, then that's one possibility. And the other one, if the universe is not the necessarily existent thing, then that goes with the second option, the thing that is uncreated created the universe. And what I did was, if we can shift to looking at the possibility that the universe is not the necessarily existent thing, and the thing that necessarily exists, which I call NET as the acronym for it, the necessarily existent thing is NET. And so if NET is not the universe, then NET is that which created the universe necessarily, because there are no other options. There's nothing else that could have done it. And so if NET necessarily exists and is eternal and created the universe, you can sort of get at qualities that NET would need to have in order to create the universe as we know it. And for me, because NET is like the deity in a sense, it would have to be number one, physically real and extended. See, some Christian apologetics people believe that God is outside of space and time. They have this weird argument that in order for God to create space and time, he has to be outside of them. But to me, I think that it should be sort of a as above, so below thing, where there's uncreated, I actually believe that space and time are part of the uncreated nature of the deity. And that it's called, one of the fancy words is instantiated. When or which is just the long word of an instance of something, instantiated. And I believe that God, or the deity, is instantiated, and that there's like an uncreated time, uncreated space, uncreated being, where he is actually instantiated and extended, has a corporeal nature, and that the created world is the reflection of that, simulation of it, in a sense. And one of the key things that this necessarily existent thing, in the case where net is not the universe, has to have, is the quality of mind, because of another argument that I have called PMD, which stands for the prior mind dilemma. And this is the idea that truth, existential truthhood rather, is essential to everything that exists. And for something to exist, we have all these impure materialists saying that everything is ultimately just about physical reality. But if since truth is only in the mind, truth is a concept. But since we can say that what we can say is if truth is only in the mind, then nothing truly exists until it is perceived.
Well, even like a counter argument to the materialists are, we've already been able to, through observation, even just at the atomic level, understand that majority of what we're looking at is empty space to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So like, even though we've looked at, this wooden desk that we're sitting by, or the TV behind us, right? There's these elements to them that make our minds perceive it as a physical object, right? But it is 100% empty space with a 0.1% just pure energy that makes it appear physical.
Empty space, and it's essentially ideas. Going back to George Berkeley, he believed that everything was composed of ideas, basically. Like, whether you think that there's really a physical world out there or not is irrelevant, in the sense that you can never really directly interact with it, because through our senses we're only ever able to interact with sensations and ideas. And so the trees that you know about, that you've climbed as a kid, and the tree that you can remember that you climbed, you're not recalling the tree when you think about it. When you remember the memories of climbing the trees, you are actually just remembering ideas. And so
and it's all energy in your mind.
Yeah. And but my thing is to attach truth to it, and to say that like nothing truly that like truth is necessary, existential truthhood is necessary, and nothing can exist without truly existing. But since truth is a concept, it's actually because in philosophy we have primary qualities and secondary qualities. A primary quality is like weight, mass, temperature, etc., actual first-hand qualities of a thing. And then the secondary qualities are sort of in the eye of the beholder. It's a beautiful tree. It's, and then even like...
it could even be tall or short compared to...
Which is relative.
Yeah, relative to your own stature.
Secondary qualities. And so since truth is like an idea, it becomes a meta-level secondary quality that all existent things have to possess. In other words, like everything has to be under constant observation, where this universal observation is rationalizing the fact that yes, this really exists, that exists, X, Y, Z, all these things exist, and it is something that's necessary, because without something truly existing, think about it. Just step away from all this argumentation. Just speak colloquially, like, unicorns don't truly exist. What does that mean? That means that there's no physicality whatsoever You can't find them anywhere. It's just an idea, like whatever you want to make up, like a pink unicorn. They don't truly
children
exist.
will dream of it.
So, truly existing is, even though it's like a sentence, and it's like you're attaching something mental to objects in the external world, without it, you have nothing. It's like a mind fuck, to where, that's the prior mind dilemma. And since, so if the universe is not the necessarily existent thing, then the thing which does necessarily exist has to have the quality of mind. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to rationalize the truth of its own existence. And so you get in this situation where the net has mental qualities, has extension, it's in space and time, and then you can add other stuff like voluntary action and etc. But just to keep moving on, now we're looking at the main possibility, which is what most people think, an eternal universe. And you can actually apply the same logic to an eternal universe and say, well, the universe, you want to say the universe is eternal, okay? But the universe can't be that which logically is eternal, that which like logically must necessarily exist, because nothingness can't exist. It's just like, non-existence doesn't exist. It's point blank. But it can't be the necessarily existent thing, the universe, even if it is eternal, because classically the universe doesn't have the quality of mind, so it wouldn't be able to rationalize the truth of its own existence, so it therefore would not be able to truly exist, therefore it wouldn't fucking exist. Like, eternal universe notwithstanding, it still doesn't get you to where you have to be, which is to be able to have the mind to be able to manifest the truth of its own existence. And so there's that, and then there's also the fact that like with the simulation hypothesis, the various versions of a simulation, I think about the fact that our technology, we're very close to like general AI and being
Pretty
able
scary.
to create like a real matrix. And if we are in a matrix of sorts, then what we know about computer programming allows us to make pretty good analogies, I think. For example, whenever they write video games, they are able to put it at any point in time, and they can make it so that, however much time has gone by that they want. We can have games that are about time travel, whether you want to go into the future or the past. And if you want to put $1 billion in your character's bank account, it's just numbers on the screen. And infinity in a computer is just one little symbol. And if you put the symbol under the time bracket to set it to infinity, then all of a sudden an infinite amount of time is in the past. And so it's possible that we're living in a simulation where it appears as though an infinite amount of time has already gone by. The universe is eternal, and we're like in the middle of that because that's just one of the parameters of the simulation. Another sidebar on that is to propose that, well, the universe could be eternal, but at the same time, maybe there is a non-creator deity of the universe. Think about this. So it could be the case that, because the whole point of not the whole point, but like one of the main ideological motivations for proposing that the universe is eternal is that it gets you away from needing a creator of it. It's just, we don't need a God because the universe is eternal. Well, think again, because number one, there could be a deity that just didn't create the universe, but more than that, as we just said, it could be a simulation where, part of the parameters are set to make it appear that it's eternal. And then you can talk about the need to wake up from the matrix and the whole meaning of the greater purpose of existence. And my idea,
becoming enlightened.
Yes, exactly. Becoming enlightened, evolving into God, however you want to say it, because if the necessarily existent thing is not the universe, and you can logically infer all these qualities, including mind and volition, a free act. The creating of the universe is a free act, because again, if that which created the universe is the necessarily existent thing, then it didn't need to create the universe because it already had its own existence. It's self-sufficient and created the universe not out of voyeurism or sadism in order to just like pick on the little mortals and like play the puppet master. It's an act of indulgence of the creation to allow the creation to know God and to be able to eventually like
integrate with it.
Yeah, and so if the universe is not eternal, then God could have created the universe with his body, because it doesn't have to be a simulation. Like, in other words, yes, if it appears that there was a Big Bang, that could just be the simulation. But if it's appears eternal, then that could also be a simulation. But in that case, everything is like a mental simulation, whereas if the universe is actually not eternal, then it was created at a certain point, arbitrary point, anytime. And God could have done that with his body. And going back to the Jewish mystics in the Middle Ages, Isaac Luria, who's like the godfather of Kabbalah, he actually came up with the term the Zimzum, which is so you have an infinite vacuum, and then the opposite of that is an infinite plenum, the fullness of God. And in order to create the universe, in the case of creating at an arbitrary point, he basically created a partitioned space in order to allow for creation to come about. And so, coming back around full circle, again, we have examined the three main possibilities of how existence is existing. Again, number one, we have the Big Bang. We attempted to contradict the Big Bang, and hopefully, if you can eliminate that possibility, then you're only talking about an eternal creator or an eternal universe. Mm-hmm. And if there's an eternal creator, then our job is done. Basically, you just have to figure out the necessary qualities that he would have to have in order to create the universe, including the mind and the free will, etc. And then if the universe is eternal, then we use the prior mind dilemma to say that, well, classically, the universe, even if it's eternal, it still can't be that necessarily existent thing, because it can't rationalize the truth of its own existence. And so either you have to accept that the universe inherently has some mental qualities to it, or something that created the universe has those mental qualities. But in the case of the universe being eternal, it would have to be the case that it's a simulation. It's actually not really eternal, but that's the way that it appears to be.
Yeah, at least from our tiny perspective on this small planet within the galaxy.
Yeah, and so everything hinges on truth, the prior mind dilemma, and the fact that truth is is essential. And if something doesn't truly exist, then it doesn't exist. And even though that's an observation, it's an observation. It's a meta level secondary quality of everything that exists in the external world that's happening in the mind, in a mind, that just logically, you don't start out saying that, like, well, God created the universe. You're basically just saying that, like, something uncreated, an uncreated being created the universe as one of the three main possibilities, and then you just inch your way closer and closer to what most people would be able to recognize as a creator deity, because they're just necessary qualities, because it couldn't be any other way. And you don't necessarily move directly towards like omniscience and omnipotence and like classic qualities like that, but just sufficient qualities that you would need in order to create the creation.
Right on. And so you're coming out with a video pretty soon on this mad theory that you've got.
Right.
And
hopefully it will be coming out soon. And
and you'll be covering a lot of these concepts and ideas more in depth than what we're able to get in here.
Fewer ums and pauses, and hopefully it'll be a lot more coherent. But I hope this video does the job.
Oh, it's a good little teaser at least, get some, hopefully, traction towards your video, and even if it's just a little preview of the content that you're going to be discussing, it's a good intro, I think, for it. So
awesome.
Yeah, we'll have to try and shoot one more maybe before we depart again. I'm going to be leaving Thailand fairly soon, but you're going to be here hopefully for a bit longer, maybe a couple more teaching contracts.
Yeah, I hope so.
But
I have an interview tomorrow morning, so hope that goes well.
Perfect. All right, well, yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you for listening, everyone. Hope you found this interesting. Do you want to drop a little bit of a hint as to where your channel can be found?
Yeah, my channel is, let's see, because I have several different channels. I want to steer you to the right channel. It's cryptic_fox.
And I'll put the link in the description as well. That way you guys can find it, or at least drop his channel there. So definitely go and check his channel, subscribe to it. That way you're able to find this theory that he's going to be putting out on MAD. And we look forward to it.
Thanks, man.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll hopefully be able to catch you in the next one. And really, hopefully it's not as long of a break as last time. But anyways, it's good to be back. It's good to be talking some higher level theories. And we'll try to find another quick topic to discuss and see what we can
we'll
bring
do that
out.
too. And subscribe, comment, and we'll see you in the next one.